The sound of the hospital's intercom echoed through the halls, a rhythmic undertone to the shuffle of hurried footsteps and the muffled conversations of nurses and doctors. Ana Velasquez pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders as she walked to the break room. The faint scent of antiseptic lingered on her scrubs, mingling with the aroma of stale coffee. It was another long shift, the kind Ana had grown accustomed to over the years. At 38, Ana had become a cornerstone of the hospital's nursing team. Her colleagues admired her quiet dedication, even as they whispered about her solitude. Ana was the kind of person who was always there, dependable, kind and steady, but rarely the center of attention. Yet behind her calm demeanor lay a deep well of loneliness, a life punctuated by the echoes of dreams she had once harbored, but no longer dared to speak of. Her one-bedroom apartment, though neat and cozy, bore the sterile simplicity of someone who spent more time caring for others than herself. The walls were lined with books she seldom had time to read, and the single potted plant on her windowsill struggled for survival under her neglectful care. She had left her hometown years ago, fleeing the memories of a failed engagement and the quiet judgment of neighbors who had once whispered about her misfortune. Tonight, as she sat briefly in the break room, the hum of the vending machine filled the silence. Clara, her closest friend at the hospital, poked her head through the door. "Ana, Dr. Hargrove's looking for you." "Something about the new patient in 402, she said, her voice tinged with concern. Ana sighed, pushing herself up from the chair. "Thanks, Clara. I'll check on it." Dr. Matthew Hargrove was a man of contrasts. His sharp intellect was matched only by his sharper tongue, and though he was brilliant, his arrogance often alienated him from his colleagues. Ana had learned to navigate his brusqueness with a patience born of years in the profession. When she arrived in room 402, Dr. Hargrove was already there, flipping through the chart. "Velasquez, the patient's vitals are unstable. I need you to monitor closely tonight," he said without looking up. His tone was clinical, devoid of any pleasantries. Ana nodded, her attention shifting to the unconscious man in the bed. He was middle-aged, his face pale and slack against the pillow. The machines around him beeped in a steady rhythm, a lifeline tethering him to the world. She adjusted his IV with practiced ease, her movements fluid and efficient. The hours ticked by in the quiet monotony of the ward. Ana's thoughts wandered as she tended to her patients, her mind drifting to the choices that had brought her here. There had been a time when she had envisioned a different life for herself, a family, a home filled with laughter. But reality had a way of dulling dreams, and now her days were filled with the ceaseless demands of others. As her shift neared its end, Ana lingered by the window, watching the city lights flicker against the pre-dawn sky. The world outside moved on, indifferent to the lives being saved or lost within these walls. A sharp knock on the door jolted her from her reverie. "Ana, there's someone here to see you," Clara said, her expression curious. "Some lawyer asking for you by name." Ana frowned, her stomach tightening with unease. Lawyers didn't usually appear in hospitals unless something had gone terribly wrong. She followed Clara to the reception area, where a man in a tailored suit stood waiting. His presence was out of place in the fluorescent-lit corridor, his polished shoes clicking against the linoleum as he turned to face her. "Ms. Velasquez, my name is Richard Lawson," he said, extending a hand. "I represent the Harrington family. I have a proposition for you." Ana hesitated, her gaze flickering to Clara, who raised an eyebrow in silent question. "I'm not sure I understand," Ana replied cautiously, shaking his hand. "It's a matter of some urgency," Lawson said, his tone measured. "Would you be willing to discuss this over coffee? I assure you, it's an opportunity worth considering." Despite the fatigue weighing on her, curiosity piqued Ana's interest. She nodded reluctantly, following Lawson out of the hospital and into the brisk morning air. Little did she know, this conversation would mark the beginning of a journey that would upend her quiet existence and force her to confront truths she had long avoided. The coffee shop Lawson had chosen was tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, its warm interior a stark contrast to the chill of the early morning. Anna wrapped her hands around a steaming cup of coffee, her fingers brushing against the smooth ceramic as she waited for Lawson to speak. He sat across from her, his posture poised and professional, the faintest hint of a smile softening his otherwise sharp features. "Miss Velasquez," he began, his voice even and deliberate. "What I'm about to propose may come as a surprise, but I assure you, it is both legitimate and highly rewarding." Anna raised an eyebrow, her skepticism evident. "I'm listening." Lawson leaned forward slightly, his expression earnest. "I represent the Harrington family. You may have heard of them. Edward Harrington is a prominent figure in the tech industry. Unfortunately, Mr. Harrington is currently in a coma following a severe accident. His family has requested the services of a highly skilled nurse to oversee his care in their home. The mention of the Harrington name did ring a bell, though only faintly. Anna had no reason to follow the lives of billionaires, but she vaguely recalled news reports about Edward Harrington, a visionary entrepreneur who had made headlines for his innovative technologies and controversial personal life. "Why me?" she asked, her tone guarded. Lawson's smile widened slightly, as though anticipating the question. "Your reputation precedes you, Ms. Velasquez. The hospital administrator spoke highly of your professionalism and dedication. The Harringtons require someone they can trust implicitly, someone with experience and a strong moral compass." Anna shifted in her seat, unsure how to respond. The offer was intriguing, but also unnerving. "What exactly would my responsibilities be?" she asked. "You would be working closely with a medical team to ensure Mr. Harrington's well-being," Lawson explained. "The position is live-in at the family's estate. In addition to your standard duties as a nurse, you would coordinate with specialists and monitor his condition daily." The idea of leaving her apartment and her familiar hospital routine sent a ripple of unease through Anna. Yet, there was something compelling about the prospect of stepping into a new environment, even one as daunting as the Harrington estate. "And the compensation," she ventured, though she already suspected it would be significant. Lawson's smile returned. "Substantial, more than enough to make the transition worthwhile. Additionally, all living expenses would be covered." Anna glanced out the window, the city bathed in the pale light of dawn. It was an enticing offer, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this arrangement than Lawson was letting on. "Why is he being cared for at home?" she asked. "Wouldn't a hospital or specialized facility be more suitable for someone in his condition?" Lawson hesitated, the briefest flicker of discomfort crossing his face before he recovered. "The family believes he will recover more comfortably in a familiar environment. They're committed to providing him with the best care possible." It was a polished answer, but Anna sensed there was more to the story. Still, the prospect of change, of breaking free from the monotony of her life, was tempting. "Do I have time to think about it?" she asked. "Of course," Lawson replied, standing and smoothing the front of his suit. "Take the day to consider. If you choose to accept, I'll provide the necessary arrangements. Here's my card." He handed her a crisp business card with his contact information embossed in silver. "But I must warn you, the family is eager to move forward, so time is of the essence." Anna nodded, slipping the card into her pocket. As Lawson left the cafe, she sat alone, her coffee growing cold. Her mind swirled with questions and doubts. Could she truly leave her stable, if unremarkable, life for a job that promised not only financial security but also a plunge into the unknown? By the time she returned to her apartment, The city was awake and bustling. Anna stood in her living room, staring at the sparse furniture and the stack of unopened books on her coffee table. The quiet predictability of her life was both comforting and suffocating, and Lawson's offer seemed like a key to a door she hadn't dared to open in years. Yet unease gnawed at the edges of her thoughts. What had Lawson not told her about Edward Harrington? And why did she feel as though accepting the job would be a step into something far more complicated than she could imagine? For now, all she could do was ponder the weight of the decision before her, unaware that her life was already shifting in ways she could neither foresee nor control. Anna spent the rest of the day in a fog of indecision, the weight of Lawson's proposal pressing heavily on her mind. The crisp business card sat on her kitchen counter, a small but persistent reminder of the opportunity that could change her life or disrupt it entirely. She caught herself staring at it several times, her thoughts vacillating between curiosity and fear. Her apartment felt smaller than ever, the quiet solitude that usually comforted her now an oppressive void. As the afternoon sun filtered through the window blinds, casting striped shadows on the floor, Anna picked up her phone and dialed Clara's number. Clara answered on the second ring, her voice a cheerful contrast to Anna's mood. "Hey, Anna, how's your day off?" Anna hesitated, unsure how much to share. "It's been interesting. I need your advice." "That sounds serious," Clara said, the sound of her bustling kitchen fading into the background. "Tell me everything." Anna explained the unexpected encounter with Lawson and the details of his offer. As she spoke, she heard Clara's sharp intake of breath. "The Harrington family. Anna, that's huge, but also kind of intimidating. What's holding you back?" "It just feels strange," Anna admitted, pacing her small living room. "Why me? Why not someone with more specialized experience?" And the way Lawson talked about it, it seemed like there's more going on than he's telling me. Clara was silent for a moment, and Anna could almost picture her friend biting her lip in thought. "Well, it's a big decision, no doubt about that. But maybe this is the change you need. You've been stuck in the same routine for years." "Anna, when's the last time you did something for yourself?" Anna sighed, rubbing her temple. Clara wasn't wrong. Her life had become a carefully constructed cage of comfort and predictability, but the idea of stepping into the unknown terrified her. "What if it's a mistake?" Anna asked softly. "What if it's not?" Clara countered. "Look, I can't make the decision for you, but I do know this. You deserve more than what you're giving yourself credit for. If it feels right, even a little, maybe it's worth the risk." They chatted a little longer, Clara's words lingering in Anna's mind even after they hung up. She turned the card over in her hand, feeling the embossed letters beneath her fingertips. Despite her hesitation, something about the offer tugged at her, a spark of curiosity and longing she hadn't felt in years. That evening, Anna decided to distract herself with her usual routine. She cooked a simple dinner, the rhythmic chopping of vegetables soothing her nerves, but even as she tried to focus on the meal, her thoughts kept circling back to the Harringtons. She found herself searching Edward Harrington online, scrolling through articles about his rise as a tech mogul. There were mentions of his innovative work, his philanthropic endeavors, and most recently, his accident. The details of the accident were sparse, but Anna noticed a thread of speculation in several pieces. A car crash on a secluded road, late at night, with no witnesses. The articles mentioned that Edward's injuries were severe, but no specifics were provided. The vagueness unsettled her, feeding into her growing sense of unease. After dinner, Anna sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the city lights flicker against the dark sky. The decision loomed over her, heavier than ever. She thought about her patients at the hospital, the ones who clung to life with such determination despite their frailty. She thought about her own life, about how she had let fear dictate her choices for so long. As the hours crept toward midnight, Anna made a list in her mind, weighing the pros and cons. On one side, stability, familiarity, and the safety of her current routine. On the other, uncertainty, risk, but also the possibility of something more, something meaningful. Her thoughts returned to Clara's words. What if it's not a mistake? By the time Anna finally went to bed, she still hadn't made up her mind. Sleep came fitfully, her dreams a jumbled mix of hospital corridors and shadowy figures. She woke before dawn, her heart racing, as if her subconscious was trying to tell her something she couldn't yet articulate. The business card glinted faintly in the dim light of her kitchen as she made her morning coffee. She stared at it, the decision still unresolved but inching closer to clarity. Deep down, Anna knew that staying in her current life might keep her safe, but it wouldn't make her whole. The next morning, Anna found herself sitting at her kitchen table, the business card from Richard Lawson now placed neatly beside her cup of coffee. The early sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the small, tidy space she had grown so accustomed to. It was a life of order, of predictability, but also of stasis. As the minutes ticked by, the card seemed to taunt her, daring her to make a choice. Her phone buzzed, breaking the stillness. It was Clara, her friend's name flashing on the screen. "Hey, Anna," Clara said, her tone warm but curious. "Have you made a decision yet?" Anna sighed, cradling the phone against her shoulder. "Not yet. I don't know, Clara. It feels like stepping into a completely different world, and I'm not sure I belong there." "You're overthinking it," Clara replied. "I know it's scary, but sometimes we need to shake things up. Besides, you can always leave if it doesn't work out, right?" Anna nodded, though Clara couldn't see her. "I guess so." The conversation gave Anna a small push, but as she hung up, the weight of the decision still pressed heavily on her. She spent the rest of the morning pacing her apartment, caught in a loop of indecision. Every argument for staying was countered by an equally compelling argument for going. The more she thought about it, the more paralyzed she became. By mid-afternoon, Anna decided to take a walk to clear her head. The crisp autumn air filled her lungs as she wandered through the city streets. She passed by families enjoying the park, couples sharing quiet moments on benches, and children chasing each other with carefree laughter. It reminded her of a life she had once imagined for herself, a life that felt farther away with each passing year. As she turned a corner, she nearly collided with a man carrying a stack of books. "Oh, excuse me," she said, stepping aside. "No harm done," the man replied with a polite smile before continuing on his way. The encounter was brief, but it jolted Anna out of her spiral of thoughts. She realized that she had been avoiding making a decision not because she didn't know what she wanted, but because she was afraid of what it might mean to want something different. When she returned home, the business card was still there, waiting for her. This time, Anna didn't hesitate. She picked up her phone and dialed the number. "Lawson speaking," came the smooth, professional voice on the other end. "Mr. Lawson, this is Ana Velasquez," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside her. "I've decided to accept the position." There was a brief pause, and then Lawson's tone brightened. "Excellent, Ms. Velasquez. I'll arrange for your transportation to the Harrington estate tomorrow. Someone will meet you at the gate to show you around and get you settled." "Tomorrow?" Anna repeated, caught off guard by the immediacy. "Yes," Lawson confirmed. "The family is eager to have you on board." After the call ended, Anna sat in her living room, the enormity of her decision sinking in. Tomorrow, her life would change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The thought both exhilarated and terrified her. That evening, she packed a small suitcase, choosing her belongings carefully. She kept her wardrobe simple, her favorite books tucked in a corner, and a photo of her parents carefully wrapped in a scarf. As she zipped the bag shut, she paused to take one last look around her apartment. It wasn't much, but it had been her sanctuary for years. The thought of leaving it behind was bittersweet. Before going to bed, Anna texted Clara to let her know about the decision. Clara's reply came almost immediately. "Proud of you. Call me if you need anything. You've got this." Anna smiled at the message, her nerves easing slightly. She crawled into bed, her thoughts racing as she tried to anticipate what the next day would bring. The unknown loomed large before her, a chasm of uncertainty, but also of possibility. For the first time in years, Anna felt the flicker of something she had nearly forgotten: hope. The following morning arrived with an air of inevitability. Anna woke early, the first light of dawn spilling through her curtains. She lay in bed for a few moments, staring at the ceiling, as the reality of her decision settled in. The suitcase stood neatly by the door, a tangible symbol of the change she was about to embrace, or the unknown she was walking into. After a quick breakfast, Anna double-checked the contents of her bag. As she zipped it shut, her phone buzzed with a message from Lawson. "Your car will arrive at 9 a.m. sharp. The driver's name is Victor. Safe travels." At exactly 9 a.m., a sleek black car pulled up outside her building. Anna stepped out into the crisp morning air, her heart thudding in her chest. The driver, a tall man in his 40s with a calm demeanor, greeted her with a polite nod. "Ms. Velasquez?" he asked, opening the trunk for her suitcase. "Yes," Anna replied, her voice steadier than she felt. As Victor loaded her bag, she climbed into the back seat, clutching her purse tightly. The cityscape blurred past the window as the car navigated the streets, gradually giving way to the open roads of the countryside. Anna watched as the familiar urban sprawl was replaced by sprawling fields and dense clusters of trees. The ride was quiet, save for the faint hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the radio. After nearly 2 hours, the car turned onto a long, winding driveway lined with towering oaks. The Harrington estate loomed in the distance, a sprawling mansion that exuded both grandeur and intimidation. Its grey stone facade and tall windows seemed to watch her approach, as if the house itself were appraising her worth. Victor parked in front of the grand entrance and stepped out to retrieve her bag. Anna followed hesitantly, her footsteps echoing on the stone driveway. The massive wooden door opened before they could knock, and a woman in a crisp black uniform greeted them. "You must be Ms. Velasquez," the woman said, her tone polite but formal. "I'm Margaret, the head of the household staff. Welcome to Harrington Manor." Anna nodded, her nerves sharpening under Margaret's scrutinizing gaze. She stepped inside, and the sheer scale of the interior momentarily took her breath away. The marble floors gleamed under the light of an ornate chandelier, and the walls were adorned with tasteful but impersonal artwork. It was the kind of house that spoke of wealth, but not warmth. Margaret led Anna through the halls, pointing out key areas: the kitchen, the sitting room, the private medical suite where Edward Harrington was being cared for. "Your quarters are just down the hall from Mr. Harrington's room," Margaret explained. "We'll ensure you have everything you need to perform your duties." As they walked, Anna couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The silence of the house was oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of machinery from Edward's room. When they finally reached the suite, Margaret paused and gestured toward the door. "I'll leave you to familiarize yourself," she said. "If you need anything, I'll be in the staff quarters." Anna nodded and stepped inside. The suite was a blend of advanced medical equipment and understated luxury. Monitors beeped softly, tracking Edward's vitals, while the room's decor maintained an air of refinement. Edward himself lay motionless in the bed, his face pale and serene. His chest rose and fell in rhythm with the ventilator, a stark reminder of his fragility. Anna approached cautiously, her professional instincts taking over. She checked the monitors, noting his blood pressure and oxygen levels. Everything appeared stable, but she couldn't ignore the nagging sense that something was off. The room felt too perfect, too controlled. As she worked, her thoughts drifted to the family she had yet to meet. Where was Veronica Harrington, the wife Lawson had mentioned? And what about Lucas, Edward's stepson? The absence of any family presence struck Anna as odd, given the circumstances. Later that afternoon, Margaret returned with a tray of tea and a stern expression. "Mrs. Harrington would like to meet you in the drawing room," she announced. "Please follow me." Anna's pulse quickened as she followed Margaret down the winding hallways. The drawing room was as opulent as the rest of the house, with plush furniture and a roaring fireplace. Veronica Harrington stood by the window, her figure tall and elegant, framed by the sunlight streaming through the glass. "Mrs. Harrington," Margaret said, her tone deferential. "This is Ms. Velasquez." Veronica turned slowly, her expression inscrutable. She was striking, with sharp features and a demeanor that commanded attention. Her eyes lingered on Anna, assessing her with a cool detachment. "Thank you, Margaret," Veronica said, her voice smooth and controlled. Margaret bowed slightly and exited, leaving Anna alone with the formidable woman. Veronica motioned for Anna to sit. "I trust you've settled in comfortably," she said, her tone cordial but distant. "Yes, Mrs. Harrington," Anna replied, sitting on the edge of the chair. "Everything is in order." Veronica nodded, though her gaze remained fixed on Anna. "I expect nothing less than complete discretion and professionalism during your time here. Edward's care is of the utmost importance, and I will not tolerate any mistakes." Anna met her gaze, her own resolve hardening. "I understand, Mrs. Harrington. I'll do everything I can to ensure Mr. Harrington receives the best care." Veronica's lips curved into a faint smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Good. Then we won't have any problems." As Anna left the drawing room, she couldn't shake the feeling that Veronica Harrington was hiding something. The air in the house felt heavier now, laden with unspoken tensions. Anna's step into this new chapter of her life had been tentative, but it was clear she was walking into more than she had anticipated. The day after her tense meeting with Veronica, Anna awoke early, the first rays of sunlight filtering through her small bedroom window. Despite the luxury of the Harrington estate, her room was modest, the kind of space designed for utility rather than comfort. She had barely slept, her mind turning over the events of the previous day and the strange atmosphere that seemed to permeate the house. After a quick shower, Anna dressed in her scrubs and made her way to Edward's suite. The mansion was eerily quiet in the morning, the usual hum of activity muffled by the thick carpets and high ceilings. When she reached the medical suite, she found Margaret waiting for her, a clipboard in hand. "Good morning, Ms. Velasquez," Margaret said, her tone brisk but polite. "I thought it would be helpful to go over the household's expectations for Mr. Harrington's care." Anna nodded, pulling on a pair of gloves as she approached Edward's bedside. He lay as still as ever, his chest rising and falling in time with the ventilator. The monitors beeped steadily, a rhythmic counterpoint to the silence. Margaret stepped closer, her voice lowering slightly. "There are things you should know about the family. They have their ways. Mrs. Harrington, in particular, values control. It's best not to question her too openly." Anna glanced at Margaret, noting the tension in her expression. "I see," she replied cautiously. "I'll keep that in mind." Margaret hesitated, as if weighing whether to say more. Finally, she added, "And if you notice anything unusual, it's better to document it quietly. Not everything in this house is as it seems." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Before Anna could respond, Margaret straightened and handed her the clipboard. "I'll leave you to your work," she said, her professional mask slipping back into place. As the day wore on, Anna found herself reflecting on Margaret's warning. The house had already begun to feel like a puzzle, its opulence masking hidden fractures. Veronica's cold demeanor and the absence of any visible concern for Edward only deepened her unease. In the afternoon, Anna stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The estate's gardens were sprawling and meticulously maintained, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside the house. She followed a stone path that wound through rows of hedges and flower beds, eventually leading to a small greenhouse near the edge of the property. Inside, the air was warm and fragrant, filled with the scent of herbs and blooming flowers. A man in his 60s was crouched by a row of plants, his hands deftly trimming a rosemary bush. He looked up as Anna entered, his weathered face breaking into a kind smile. "Ah, you must be the new nurse," he said, rising to his feet and brushing dirt from his hands. "Name's Henry. I've been tending these gardens for years." Anna extended a hand, grateful for the warmth in his tone. "Ana Velasquez, it's nice to meet you." Henry chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You don't have to be so formal. I'm just the gardener, not one of the Harringtons." Something about his easy manner put Anna at ease. They chatted for a while, Henry sharing stories about the estate and its history. But as the conversation turned to the Harrington family, his expression grew somber. "Edward's a good man," Henry said, his voice quieter now. "He always treated us staff with respect. Can't say the same for the rest of them." Anna hesitated before asking, "Do you know much about what happened to him? The accident?" Henry shook his head, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Doubt, or perhaps suspicion. Not much more than what they told the press. "But I'll say this, Edward wasn't the type to take risks. If something happened to him, it wasn't just bad luck." The word sent a chill through Anna. She had sensed from the start that there was more to Edward's condition than met the eye, and Henry's cryptic comment only reinforced her suspicions. Before she left the greenhouse, Henry handed her a small sprig of rosemary. "For courage," he said with a wink. "You might need it around here." Anna returned to the house, the sprig tucked into her pocket. She spent the rest of the day attending to Edward, her mind spinning with questions. Who in this house could she trust? And what secrets were the Harringtons hiding? As night fell, Anna found herself staring at the clipboard Margaret had given her, her pen hovering over the blank notes section. She began to jot down her observations, Edward's stable vitals, the subtle tension among the staff, the uneasy dynamic with Veronica. Each word felt like a step deeper into a mystery she wasn't sure she was ready to solve. But as she placed the clipboard on the desk, the rosemary in her pocket brushed against her hand, and she remembered Henry's quiet encouragement. Whatever lay ahead, Anna resolved to face it with the courage she hadn't realized she possessed. The morning broke with a muted sky, heavy clouds casting a pale light over the Harrington estate. Anna awoke to the faint sounds of footsteps outside her door, the quiet hum of the mansion stirring to life. She dressed quickly, her mind replaying the events of the previous day, Margaret's cryptic advice, Henry's cautious warnings, and the questions swirling around Edward's mysterious condition. As she made her way to the medical suite, she noticed the staff moving with an unusual urgency. Margaret intercepted her in the hallway, her face tight with concern. "Mrs. Harrington has requested a full report on Mr. Harrington's condition this morning," Margaret said, Her tone clipped. She's expecting you to join her for tea once your observations are complete. Anna nodded, her stomach tightening. She hadn't yet grown accustomed to Veronica's commanding presence, and the thought of sitting across from her again filled Anna with unease. Inside Edward's suite, the air was heavy with the rhythmic beeping of machines. Anna approached the bed, her practiced hands checking the monitors and adjusting the IV drip. Edward remained motionless, his face pale but serene. There was no change in his vitals, no sign of deterioration or improvement. She noted everything carefully on the chart, her pen scratching against the paper as she documented his condition. But as she worked, a nagging thought crept into her mind. What exactly was Veronica expecting from these reports? And why was there so little input from the medical specialists Lawson had mentioned, her task complete? Anna made her way to the drawing room, where Veronica waited. The room was as immaculate as before, its elegance underscored by the crackling fire in the hearth. Veronica sat by the window, her posture regal, a delicate porcelain teacup balanced in her hand. "Miss Velasquez," Veronica greeted her, gesturing to the seat across from her. "Please, sit." Anna obeyed, clutching the chart like a shield. Veronica's piercing gaze landed on her, expectant but unreadable. "Tell me," Veronica began, her voice smooth but firm, "how is Edward this morning?" "Stable," Anna replied, her tone measured. "There have been no significant changes in his condition. His vitals are within normal parameters, and the equipment is functioning properly." Veronica nodded slowly, her expression giving nothing away. She sipped her tea, her movements deliberate. "And in your professional opinion, is he receiving the best care possible?" The question caught Anna off guard. "Yes, Mrs. Harrington," she said after a pause. "But I'd like to consult with the specialists who oversee his treatment to ensure that everything is aligned with his long-term recovery." Veronica's lips curved into a faint smile, though it lacked warmth. "That won't be necessary. The arrangements we've made are more than sufficient. Your role is simply to monitor and maintain." Anna hesitated, the implications of Veronica's words unsettling her. There was an air of finality in her tone, a dismissal of any outside intervention. It was as though Edward's care was less about his recovery and more about preserving a status quo. The conversation ended shortly after siesta key, Veronica excusing herself with the same poised detachment. Anna returned to the suite, her thoughts racing. The longer she spent in the Harrington estate, the more she felt as though she were being drawn into something larger than her role as a nurse. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to take shape, but the picture remained obscured. Later that afternoon, Anna sought out Henry in the greenhouse. She found him tending to a row of tomato plants, his weathered hands deftly tying the vines to their stakes. "Henry," she began, her voice low, "can I ask you something?" He looked up, his kind eyes meeting hers. "Of course." "What do you know about Edward's condition?" she asked. "I mean, really know. I get the feeling there's more to it than what I've been told." Henry paused, wiping his hands on a rag. "I know he's been in that bed longer than he should be," he said carefully, "and I know Veronica's got her reasons for keeping him there." Anna's pulse quickened. "What reasons?" Henry shook his head. "I can't say for sure, but I've worked here long enough to know when something doesn't add up. If you're smart, you'll tread carefully." The warning hung in the air as Anna left the greenhouse, her mind churning. That night, she sat by Edward's bedside, her notebook open on the desk. For the first time, she began writing not just observations about his condition, but questions about the family, the accident, and the decisions being made on Edward's behalf. As she looked at Edward's still form, She felt a surge of determination. Whatever was happening in this house, she was no longer content to simply follow orders. She had taken this job to make a difference, and she wasn't about to let the secrets of the Harringtons keep her from doing what was right. The next morning, the Harrington estate seemed even quieter than usual, its silence pressing heavily on Anna as she prepared for her day. The air in Edward's medical suite felt stagnant, the rhythmic beeping of the machines a constant reminder of the monotony of his care. Yet something inside Anna had shifted, a small but growing resolve to uncover the truth behind the strange dynamics of the household. As she checked Edward's vitals, her thoughts returned to her conversation with Henry. His veiled warnings had planted a seed of doubt that she couldn't ignore. There was something fundamentally wrong about Edward's prolonged coma, something that went beyond the medical explanations she'd been given. After completing her morning rounds, Anna decided to familiarize herself further with the estate. She ventured beyond the usual paths she took between the medical suite, her quarters, and the kitchen, wandering through the halls with cautious curiosity. The house was vast, its high ceilings and ornate decor conveying both wealth and isolation. Every creak of the floorboards under her feet echoed in the stillness. Her wandering brought her to a wing of the house she hadn't yet explored. The doors here were closed, their brass handles polished to a shine. One door, slightly ajar, caught her attention. Peering inside, she found what appeared to be a study, its walls lined with bookshelves and a large oak desk dominating the center of the room. Anna hesitated before stepping inside, her pulse quickening. She told herself she was merely exploring, but the truth was she hoped to find something, anything, that could shed light on the questions swirling in her mind. The desk was meticulously organized, with neatly stacked papers and a leather-bound notebook resting on top. She glanced toward the door, her ears straining for any sign of footsteps, before flipping open the notebook. Its pages were filled with Edward's handwriting, the neat script recounting notes about business deals, personal reflections, and, curiously, a series of cryptic entries about trust and betrayal. One passage caught her eye. "If anything happens to me, it won't be by chance. The people closest to me have the most to gain. I must tread carefully." Anna's breath caught in her throat. The words sent a chill down her spine, their implications undeniable. Edward had feared for his safety, and the phrasing suggested he had reason to suspect someone within his inner circle. Before she could read further, a noise from the hallway made her heart leap. Quickly, she closed the notebook and returned it to its original position, her movements swift and deliberate. She slipped out of the study and hurried back to the medical suite, her mind racing. By the time she settled into her routine with Edward, her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the settings on the monitors. She replayed the words she had read, their meaning gnawing at her. Who in the Harrington household could Edward have been referring to? And was it connected to his current condition? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Margaret entered, her expression as composed as ever. "Mrs. Harrington would like to see you in the library," she said. Anna nodded, masking her unease as she followed Margaret to the library. The room was another testament to the Harringtons' wealth, its towering bookshelves filled with rare volumes. Veronica was seated near the fireplace, her posture as elegant as ever. "Ms. Velasquez," Veronica began, her tone cool but polite, "I wanted to commend you on your diligence. Edward's care has been exemplary under your supervision." "Thank you, Mrs. Harrington," Anna replied cautiously, unsure of where the conversation was headed. Veronica sipped her tea, her eyes never leaving Anna. "I trust you found everything to your satisfaction here at the estate. No concerns?" The question was pointed, its undertone unmistakable. Anna chose her words carefully. "Everything has been well organized, and I appreciate the resources provided for Mr. Harrington's care." Veronica's lips curved into a faint smile, but her gaze remained sharp. Good. I expect nothing less. Edward's condition requires stability, and I rely on you to maintain that. As Anna left the library, her unease deepened. Veronica's questions, combined with what she had read in Edward's notebook, painted a picture that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The tension in the house wasn't just her imagination. There was something deeply wrong, and Anna was now certain that she was caught in the middle of it. That night, as she sat in her quarters, Anna pulled out her notebook and began to jot down everything she had observed and learned since arriving at the Harrington estate. The cryptic entry in Edward's journal, the subtle warnings from Henry and Margaret, the calculated control Veronica seemed to exert over every aspect of the household. For the first time, Anna felt the weight of her decision to come here truly sink in. She had stepped into a world she barely understood, one filled with secrets and unspoken dangers. But instead of retreating, she felt a spark of determination ignite within her. Whatever the truth was, she would find it, no matter the cost. The days in the Harrington estate began to take on a rhythm, but for Anna, it was a rhythm laced with unease. Every routine check on Edward felt more like a ritual to maintain appearances than a genuine effort at recovery. The mansion itself seemed to breathe with secrets, its grandeur a thin veneer over the tension that simmered just beneath the surface. Anna had learned to tread carefully. Margaret's words and Henry's warnings echoed in her mind as she moved through her duties, watching and listening with a heightened awareness. Her journal, hidden under her mattress, grew fuller each night as she documented every observation and every unanswered question. She knew she was piecing together a puzzle, though its full picture remained maddeningly out of reach. It was late in the afternoon when she noticed the first inconsistency. As she prepared Edward's evening medications, Anna double-checked the chart against the vials in the cabinet. One of the dosages listed on the chart was markedly higher than what she'd been administering since her arrival. Frowning, she scanned the rest of the chart. The notation for the change had been logged a week before she started working at the estate, supposedly by a physician who was never present. The discrepancy sent a wave of unease through her. If the higher dosage had been administered before her arrival, it could explain some of Edward's prolonged lack of response. But who had made the change, and why? Anna documented the anomaly in her journal and resolved to ask Margaret about it discreetly. She couldn't risk drawing Veronica's attention with premature suspicions. That evening, Anna wandered into the kitchen under the pretense of fetching tea. Margaret was there, organizing the week's grocery delivery. The older woman glanced up as Anna entered, her expression softening slightly. "Long day?" Margaret asked, her tone conversational. Anna nodded, pouring hot water into a teacup. "Margaret, may I ask you something about Mr. Harrington's treatment?" Margaret hesitated, her hands pausing over a canister. "What is it?" "I noticed a change in his medication dosages on the chart," Anna said carefully. "It's unusual. Do you know who oversees those decisions?" Margaret's face tightened almost imperceptibly. She lowered her voice, glancing toward the hallway. "Those decisions come from Mrs. Harrington," she said, her tone flat. "She consults with the doctors remotely." "But wouldn't it be safer to have someone here regularly?" Anna pressed gently. Margaret gave her a sharp look. "Mrs. Harrington insists on privacy for Mr. Harrington. She believes it's in his best interest." The response left more questions than answers, but Anna sensed she wouldn't get anything further from Margaret. She returned to Edward's suite, her mind buzzing. The medications were just another layer in the growing web of inconsistencies surrounding Edward's care. As the mansion settled into its usual nighttime stillness, Anna decided to take a walk. The gardens were dark, lit only by the faint glow of lanterns lining the pathways. She followed the winding paths until she reached the greenhouse. Inside, Henry was working late, his hands deftly pruning a row of basil plants. "Couldn't sleep?" Henry asked, glancing up as she entered. "Something like that," Anna replied, her voice low. She hesitated before adding, "Henry, have you ever noticed anything unusual about Mr. Harrington's care?" Henry's expression darkened slightly, and he set down his shears. "Plenty," he said after a pause. "But I've learned not to ask too many questions in this house. People who ask questions tend to leave." Anna's stomach tightened at his words. Do you think someone might want to keep him in this condition?" Henry met her gaze, his eyes heavy with unspoken truths. "All I'll say is this: Edward's not just a man in a coma. He's a man who holds a lot of power, even now. And power, in the wrong hands, can do a lot of harm." The words settled over Anna like a shroud. She left the greenhouse with a growing sense of determination. Whatever was happening in the Harrington estate, it was clear that Edward's condition wasn't simply the result of an accident. There was intent behind his prolonged coma, and Anna felt herself becoming more entangled in the mystery with each passing day. As she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, Anna realized she was no longer just a nurse doing her job. She had become an unwilling participant in a larger game, one that demanded not only her skills, but her courage. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear: Anna couldn't turn back now. The morning sunlight streamed through Anna's small bedroom window as she rose from another restless night. The weight of her growing suspicions hung heavily on her, but she knew she couldn't face this alone. As she prepared for the day, the threads of connection she had begun to weave with Margaret and Henry came to mind. If she was going to uncover the truth, she would need their help. Edward's suite was her first stop. As always, she checked his vitals with care, her hands steady despite the storm brewing in her mind. The machines beeped rhythmically, their monotony both a comfort and a reminder of his fragile state. Anna adjusted his IV, noting again the strange dosage change in his medication chart. It was a puzzle she couldn't solve without more information and more allies. Later in the morning, Anna found Margaret in the pantry, methodically arranging supplies. The older woman looked up as Anna entered, her expression softening with recognition. "Ms. Velasquez," Margaret greeted, her voice low but warm. "What brings you here?" Anna glanced around, ensuring they were alone. "Margaret, I need your advice," she said, her tone quiet but urgent. "There's something about Mr. Harrington's condition that doesn't sit right with me. I've noticed inconsistencies in his treatment, and I can't shake the feeling that there's more going on than I've been told." Margaret's eyes flickered with unease, and she set down the canister in her hands. "You're not wrong to feel that way," she admitted after a pause, "but this is a dangerous house to ask too many questions in." Anna stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm not trying to cause trouble, Margaret. I just want to make sure Mr. Harrington is getting the care he needs. If you know anything that could help me understand, please tell me." Margaret hesitated, her gaze shifting to the door as if expecting Veronica to appear at any moment. Finally, she sighed. "There are things I've seen over the years," she said slowly. "Things that don't add up. But I don't have proof. And without proof, there's little anyone can do." "Then we'll find proof," Anna said, determination hardening her voice. "But I can't do it alone. Will you help me?" Margaret studied her for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she nodded. "I'll do what I can, but be careful, Anna. The Harringtons don't take kindly to interference." Buoyed by Margaret's tentative support, Anna sought out Henry later that day. She found him in the greenhouse, as usual, his hands buried in soil as he tended to a row of flowering plants. "Henry," Anna began, her voice steady, "I think you were right about Edward. There's more to his condition than we're being told. Margaret is starting to trust me, but I need your help too." Henry straightened, brushing dirt from his hands as he met her gaze. "You've got guts, Anna," he said with a faint smile. "Most people wouldn't stick their necks out like this." "Edward deserves someone to stick their neck out for him," Anna replied, "and I can't do this without you. You've been here longer than anyone. You must know things that could help us figure out what's really going on." Henry considered her words, his expression thoughtful. "I've seen a lot in this house," he said finally. "Enough to know that Edward's accident wasn't just bad luck. But if you're serious about digging into this, you'll need to be smart and you'll need to be quiet. There are people watching, even when you don't see them." Anna nodded, her resolve unshaken. "I understand, but I can't just stand by and do nothing. Will you help me?" Henry's smile widened, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. "All right," he said. "I'll keep my ears open, and I'll let you know if I hear or see anything that might help. But be careful. Anna, you're playing a dangerous game." That night, Anna returned to her room feeling both encouraged and anxious. She had taken her first steps toward building a network of trust within the estate, but the risks were mounting. As she wrote in her journal, she found herself wondering how far she was willing to go and what the consequences might be if she failed. She tucked the journal back under her mattress and sat on the edge of her bed, staring out the window at the darkened gardens below. Somewhere in this house, the answers she sought were waiting. All she had to do was find them and hope that she could uncover the truth before it was too late. The day started uneventfully. Anna's routine with Edward remained the same, monitoring his vitals, administering medication, and carefully recording every detail in the log. Yet beneath the surface of the house's quiet rhythm, an undercurrent of tension buzzed, sharper and more pronounced than before. Anna had begun to feel the weight of being watched, the sensation gnawing at her, even when she was alone. It wasn't paranoia. She noticed Lucas Harrington, Edward's stepson, appearing more frequently in her peripheral vision. His sharp eyes seemed to linger on her just a moment too long, his presence unnerving but never outright threatening. That afternoon, as Anna was leaving the medical suite, Lucas approached her in the hallway. His appearance was as polished as ever, a tailored suit, perfectly styled hair, but his demeanor was anything but smooth. His jaw was tight, his expression hard. "Ms. Velasquez," he said, his voice cold and clipped. "Do you have a moment?" Anna hesitated, her instincts flaring with warning. "Of course, Mr. Harrington." "How can I help you?" Lucas motioned for her to follow him, leading her to a small sitting room. The door clicked shut behind them, and Anna felt the walls close in slightly. Lucas gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing, her posture polite but firm. "I've been meaning to talk to you about my stepfather's care," Lucas began, his tone laced with a hint of accusation. "You've been here for a short time, yet I've noticed you taking quite an interest in things outside your responsibilities." Anna met his gaze evenly. "I take my role seriously, Mr. Harrington. Ensuring Mr. Harrington's well-being requires thoroughness." "Thoroughness is one thing," Lucas snapped, his composure slipping momentarily, "but prying into matters that don't concern you is another." Anna stiffened but kept her expression neutral. "I'm not sure I understand." "Oh, I think you do," Lucas said, stepping closer. His voice lowered, the menace in his tone unmistakable. "Let me be clear. My stepfather's condition is being handled exactly as it should be. Your job is to follow the protocols provided, not to ask questions. Are we understood?" Anna's heart pounded, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I've only been following the protocols, Mr. Harrington. My goal is to ensure Mr. Harrington's recovery." Lucas's lips curled into a thin smile, but there was no warmth in it. Good, then let's keep it that way. The tension in the room was palpable, but Anna refused to back down. Lucas's words had confirmed what she already suspected. There was more to Edward's condition than the family wanted to admit, and Lucas was determined to keep her in the dark. After Lucas left, Anna returned to Edward's suite, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas's warning was just the beginning. Her determination hardened. She wasn't about to let intimidation deter her from uncovering the truth. Later that evening, Anna found Henry in the greenhouse. She recounted her encounter with Lucas, her voice low and measured. "That doesn't surprise me," Henry said, his tone grim. "Lucas has always been the type to protect his own interests, no matter the cost." "Do you think he has something to do with Edward's condition?" Anna asked. Henry hesitated, glancing around the greenhouse as if the shadows might hold ears. "I can't say for certain," he replied, "but Lucas stands to gain a lot if Edward stays out of the picture. Just be careful, Anna. He's not someone to cross lightly." Anna nodded, the weight of Henry's warning settling over her. The stakes were higher than she'd anticipated, and the path ahead was fraught with danger, but she couldn't turn back now. Edward's life, and perhaps her own, depended on her uncovering the truth. That night, Anna double-checked the locks on her bedroom door before sitting down to write in her journal. She documented every detail of her interaction with Lucas, her suspicions about his motives, and the growing sense of danger within the estate. As she finished writing, she glanced at the small sprig of rosemary Henry had given her, now resting on her nightstand. It was a simple thing, but it reminded her of the courage she needed to carry on. Whatever Lucas was hiding, Anna was determined to find it and expose it, no matter the cost. The Harrington estate seemed quieter than usual the next day, the air thick with the weight of unspoken tensions. Anna began her morning rounds with Edward, her movements precise and deliberate. She checked his vitals, adjusted his IV drip, and recorded every detail in the medical log. Yet, her mind was elsewhere, replaying her confrontation with Lucas and the veiled threats he had made. As the day progressed, Anna noticed small but unsettling changes around the estate. Margaret, typically composed and efficient, appeared distracted, her gaze darting toward the hallways whenever footsteps echoed nearby. Even Henry, normally unflappable, seemed more reserved during their brief conversation in the greenhouse. Anna couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas's warning had sent ripples through the household, and she suspected he wasn't done trying to assert control. That afternoon, as she walked toward the kitchen, Anna heard hushed voices coming from one of the sitting rooms. She paused, her curiosity piqued, and strained to catch the conversation. "Can't let her dig any deeper," Lucas's voice said, sharp and insistent. "She's already asking too many questions." Another voice responded, lower and harder to discern. Anna caught fragments: necessary, control, and Edward, but the meaning eluded her. Before she could listen further, the sound of approaching footsteps forced her to retreat. She quickly ducked into the kitchen, her heart pounding. Margaret was there, her back to Anna, as she scrubbed the counter with unusual intensity. Anna hesitated before stepping closer. "Margaret," she said softly, "is everything all right?" Margaret turned, her face carefully blank. "Of course," she said, though her voice was tight. "Why do you ask?" Anna considered pressing further, but decided against it. Instead, she nodded and busied herself making tea, her mind racing with questions. Who had Lucas been speaking to? And what did he mean by control? Later that day, Anna returned to Edward's suite. As she checked his charts, a thought occurred to her. If there was something suspicious about his treatment, the answers might lie in the medications. She carefully examined the vials in the cabinet, comparing their labels to the log. Everything seemed in order, but her gut told her otherwise. She decided to take a small sample of the IV solution for testing. It was a risky move, one that could get her fired, or worse, if discovered, but Anna knew she couldn't ignore her instincts. She slipped the sample into a sealed bag and hid it in her pocket, her pulse quickening as she glanced around the room. The following evening, Anna found herself in the greenhouse again, seeking the solace of Henry's presence. The older man greeted her with a nod, his hands busy with a tray of seedlings. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, his tone light but laced with concern. Anna hesitated before replying. "I've been noticing things, small things, but they don't add up. I think there's more to Edward's condition than anyone's admitting." Henry set down the tray and wiped his hands on a cloth. "You're not wrong," he said quietly. "But if you're planning to do something about it, you need to be smart. Lucas isn't the only one watching." The words sent a chill through Anna. "What do you mean?" Henry glanced toward the greenhouse door before continuing. "There are people who have a stake in keeping Edward the way he is, not just Lucas. If you're digging into this, you need to be ready for pushback and for things to get dangerous." Anna swallowed hard, the weight of his warning settling over her. "I can't just stand by and do nothing," she said firmly. "Edward deserves better than this." Henry nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Then be careful, Anna. You've got more courage than most, but courage won't mean much if you're not around to use it." That night, Anna lay awake in her room, the small sample of IV solution hidden in her bag. She knew she had crossed a line, one that could lead to answers, or consequences she wasn't prepared for. But as she stared at the ceiling, she felt a growing resolve. The truth was worth the risk, even if it meant facing whatever shadows lurked within the Harrington estate. The day began with an air of unease. Anna couldn't shake the sense that she was being watched more closely than before. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow that flickered in her peripheral vision seemed charged with meaning. It was as if the house itself had grown hostile, its once grand halls now oppressive and suffocating. Anna's first task was, as always, tending to Edward. His condition remained unchanged, the machines keeping his body alive while his mind remained an enigma. Yet as she checked his IV drip, her gaze lingered on the fluid inside, a silent reminder of the sample she had taken the previous evening. Her plan to test the sample weighed heavily on her. She knew the risk was immense. If Lucas or Veronica discovered what she was doing, it could mean the end of her time at the estate, or worse. But the inconsistencies in Edward's treatment gnawed at her, and she couldn't ignore the growing certainty that his coma was anything but natural. The tension boiled over during lunch when Anna crossed paths with Lucas in the main hallway. His presence had grown increasingly menacing since their confrontation, and today was no exception. He blocked her path, his arms crossed and his gaze cold. "Ms. Velasquez," he said, his tone dripping with false politeness. "I trust you're finding everything to your satisfaction." Anna met his gaze steadily, refusing to let him intimidate her. "Yes, thank you," she replied, her voice calm. "Mr. Harrington's care is my top priority." Lucas smirked, leaning in slightly. "I hope you remember that. Straying from your duties can have consequences." The implied threat hung in the air, but Anna refused to flinch. "My duties are clear, Mr. Harrington," she said firmly. "And I take them very seriously." Lucas straightened, his smirk fading as he regarded her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Good. I'd hate to think you were wasting your time on things that don't concern you." He walked away without another word, leaving Anna standing in the hallway, her heart pounding. She had no doubt that Lucas was aware of her suspicions, and his warning only solidified her resolve. Whatever he was hiding, she was determined to uncover it. That afternoon, Anna made her way to the greenhouse, seeking the quiet refuge it always provided. Henry was there, tending to a cluster of potted plants. He glanced up as she entered, his expression softening with concern. "You look like you've had a run-in with a rattlesnake," he said, his voice low. "Close enough," Anna replied, her shoulders sagging slightly. "Lucas knows I'm onto something. He won't say it outright, but he's trying to scare me off." Henry nodded grimly. "That's his way. Lucas doesn't play fair, but he doesn't like to get his hands dirty either. If he's pushing you, it means you're getting too close to something he doesn't want you to find." Anna hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out the sealed bag containing the IV sample. "I took this from Edward's suite," she said. "I think there's something wrong with his medication. I need to find a way to test it." Henry's eyes widened, and for a moment he seemed at a loss for words. Finally, he said, "You've got guts, Anna. I'll give you that. But testing that stuff won't be easy. Not here, anyway." "Do you know anyone who can help?" Anna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry nodded slowly. "There's a woman I know in town. Used to work in a lab before she retired. If anyone can figure out what's in that sample, it's her." Relief flooded Anna's chest. "Can you get it to her?" Henry hesitated, his brow furrowing. "I'll try. But you need to be careful, Anna. If anyone catches wind of this, you're in more danger than you realize." "I understand," Anna said, "but I can't just stand by and do nothing. Edward deserves better." Henry took the sample, tucking it into his jacket. "I'll let you know what I find out. In the meantime, keep your head down. Lucas isn't the only one watching." That night, as Anna prepared for bed, her mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. She felt a flicker of hope, knowing that the sample was on its way to someone who could help. But the danger surrounding her was more palpable than ever. Lucas's threats, Margaret's warnings, and Henry's cautious support all pointed to the same truth. She was walking a razor's edge. As she lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, Anna wondered how much more she could uncover before the Harringtons turned their full attention on her. And when they did, would she be ready to face them? The next morning, Anna awoke with a heavy heart. The events of the previous day lingered in her mind, her confrontation with Lucas replaying in sharp detail. She was walking a thin line, and every step she took brought her closer to an edge she couldn't see. The Harrington estate, with its towering walls and sprawling gardens, felt more like a prison than ever. Her first stop, as always, was Edward's suite. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors greeted her, a steady reminder of his fragile state. She checked his vitals, her hands moving with practiced precision, though her mind raced. Henry had promised to get the IV sample tested, but until she heard back, all she could do was wait and try to stay out of Lucas's path. As the morning wore on, Anna noticed something unusual. Veronica, who typically kept her distance, appeared in the medical suite. She stood by the door, her posture stiff and her expression guarded. "Ms. Velasquez," Veronica said, her voice as cold as ever. "I'd like a word." Anna straightened, wiping her hands on her scrubs. "Of course, Mrs. Harrington. How can I help you?" Veronica stepped closer, her eyes scanning the room before settling on Anna. "I've noticed a change in your demeanor recently. You seem distracted." Anna forced herself to remain calm. "I assure you, my focus has been entirely on Mr. Harrington's care." "Good," Veronica replied, though her tone was far from reassured. "Because I expect nothing less than absolute dedication. Edward's well-being is of the utmost importance." Anna nodded, her face carefully neutral. "I understand, Mrs. Harrington." Veronica lingered a moment longer, her gaze heavy and unreadable, before turning and leaving the room. The encounter left Anna shaken, Veronica's scrutiny felt like a warning, a subtle reminder that nothing in the Harrington estate went unnoticed. Later that day, Anna decided to take a walk in the gardens to clear her mind. The fresh air and open space provided a brief respite from the oppressive atmosphere of the house. But even here, she couldn't escape the feeling of being watched. She glanced over her shoulder repeatedly, half expecting to see Lucas or one of the staff lurking nearby. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps. She turned to see Henry approaching, his expression grim. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low. Anna nodded, following him to a secluded corner of the garden. Once they were out of earshot, Henry pulled a small envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. "The results," he said simply. Anna opened the envelope, her hands trembling. Inside was a single sheet of paper, its contents handwritten in neat, precise letters. She scanned the text, her stomach sinking with each word. The IV solution contained sedatives, powerful ones, far beyond what Edward's condition would normally require. The dosages were high enough to suppress brain activity, effectively ensuring he would remain in a comatose state. Anna's breath caught in her throat. "They're keeping him in the coma," she whispered, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. Henry nodded, his expression grim. "That's what it looks like. Whoever's behind this doesn't want Edward waking up anytime soon." Anna folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket, her mind racing. The implications were staggering. Edward's coma wasn't the result of his injuries. It was deliberate, and someone in the Harrington household had orchestrated it. "What do I do now?" Anna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry hesitated, then placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've already taken the first step. Now you need to decide how far you're willing to go. This isn't just about Edward anymore. It's about what you're willing to risk to do what's right." Anna nodded, her resolve hardening. "I can't let this continue. Edward deserves a chance to recover." "Then be careful," Henry said. "Lucas and Veronica won't let you get in their way without a fight." That evening, Anna returned to the estate with the results tucked safely in her bag. She knew she was playing a dangerous game, but the truth was out now, and she couldn't ignore it. Edward's life and the secrets of the Harrington family hung in the balance. As she lay in bed that night, Anna stared at the ceiling, her thoughts a storm of fear and determination. She had uncovered the truth, but the hardest part was still ahead. The Harringtons wouldn't let her expose their secrets without a fight, and Anna knew she would have to face them head-on, no matter the cost. The morning sun filtered through Anna's window, casting pale beams across her room. She sat on the edge of her bed, the folded paper containing the test results clutched tightly in her hands. The revelation weighed heavily on her, but it had also crystallized her purpose. Edward Harrington's coma wasn't an accident, it was a calculated imprisonment, and Anna was determined to free him. Her first move was to confide in Margaret. Over the past weeks, Margaret had become an ally, her subtle support a lifeline in the isolating environment of the Harrington estate. Anna found her in the pantry, organizing the morning delivery. "Margaret," Anna began, her voice low, "I need to talk to you." "Privately," Margaret turned, her brows furrowing at Anna's tone. She gestured for Anna to follow her to a small storage room at the back of the kitchen. Once the door was shut, Anna pulled out the paper and handed it to Margaret. "These are the results of a test I had done on Edward's IV solution," Anna said, her heart pounding. "It's been laced with sedatives, strong enough to keep him in a coma indefinitely." Margaret's eyes widened as she scanned the page. Her face paled, and she shook her head slowly. "I knew something wasn't right," she whispered, "but this is monstrous." "I need your help," Anna said, her voice steady despite the fear twisting in her gut. "We have to do something. If we stay silent, Edward may never wake up. Margaret looked at Anna, her expression torn. If we act, we'll be putting ourselves in danger. The Harringtons don't forgive betrayal. I know the risks, Anna replied. But I can't stand by and let this continue. Can you? Margaret hesitated, then nodded resolutely. I'm with you. Together, they devised a plan. Margaret would distract Lucas and Veronica, creating a window for Anna to adjust Edward's medication and document the changes. If they could stabilize him without the sedatives, they might be able to trigger signs of recovery, proof that Edward's condition wasn't as dire as his family claimed. That afternoon, Margaret carried out her part of the plan. She intercepted Lucas in the study, engaging him in a tense conversation about estate management. Meanwhile, Anna entered Edward's suite, her hands trembling as she approached the IV drip. She adjusted the flow, lowering the dosage of sedatives and replacing a portion of the solution with saline. Her movements were quick but deliberate, every second feeling like an eternity. Once the adjustments were complete, she stepped back, her heart racing. The machines beeped steadily, Edward's vitals unchanged, for now. As Anna tidied the room, the door suddenly creaked open. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. Veronica stood in the doorway, her sharp eyes scanning the suite. "What are you doing?" Veronica asked, her tone cold and suspicious. Anna forced herself to remain calm. "Just routine checks," she said, gesturing to the monitors. "Everything is stable." Veronica's gaze lingered on Anna for a moment too long, but she said nothing more. She turned and left, the sound of her heels clicking against the floor fading into the hallway. Anna exhaled shakily, her knees weak with relief. That evening, Anna and Margaret met in the kitchen to review their progress. Margaret had successfully kept Lucas occupied, and Anna's adjustments to Edward's medication had gone unnoticed. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. "We've bought ourselves some time," Anna said, her voice quiet but determined. "But we need to be prepared. If Edward shows signs of waking up, Lucas and Veronica will notice. We have to act quickly." Margaret nodded, her expression grim. "I'll keep an eye on the staff. If anyone starts asking questions, I'll let you know." As Anna returned to her room that night, a flicker of hope warmed her chest. For the first time since arriving at the estate, she felt like she was making progress. The truth was within reach, and Edward's life was no longer completely under his family's control. But as she lay in bed, her thoughts returned to Lucas's threats and Veronica's sharp gaze. The Harringtons wouldn't let her actions go unchallenged for long. The battle was far from over, and Anna knew the cost of her defiance would soon come due. The following morning dawned cold and grey, the kind of day that matched the tension in the Harrington estate. Anna woke early, her mind buzzing with anticipation. The adjustments she had made to Edward's medication the previous day were a calculated risk. But if they worked, the signs would begin to show soon. Every step she took felt heavy with the knowledge of what was at stake. Not just Edward's recovery, but her own safety. Her first task of the day was to check Edward's vitals. The suite was quiet except for the soft beeping of the monitors. Anna leaned over the machines, her breath catching when she noticed a subtle change. His blood pressure was slightly elevated, still within a safe range, but noticeably different from his usual flat readings. It was the first sign of responsiveness she had seen since arriving at the estate. "Come on, Edward," she whispered under her breath. "And you're stronger than this. Fight your way back." The door creaked open, and Anna turned sharply, her heart pounding. It was Margaret, her face pale but determined. "Any changes?" Margaret asked in a hushed tone. Anna nodded, her voice low. "His blood pressure's up. It's a small change, but it's something." Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's good. But it also means we need to be more careful. Lucas and Veronica will notice anything unusual. Anna glanced at Edward's still form, a knot tightening in her stomach. We can't stop now, Margaret. We're getting closer. Throughout the day, Anna moved through the estate with heightened awareness. Every interaction with the staff, every passing glance from Lucas or Veronica felt charged with unspoken tension. She couldn't shake the feeling that her every move was being scrutinized. Late in the afternoon, while preparing Edward's next IV bag, Anna heard hurried footsteps outside the medical suite. She tensed, her fingers freezing mid-task. The door opened and Lucas entered, his expression sharp and suspicious. "How's my stepfather today?" he asked, his tone laced with faux concern. Anna turned to face him, masking her nerves with professional detachment. "Stable," she replied. "No significant changes." Lucas stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the monitors. "You've been spending a lot of time here," he said. "More than usual, don't you think?" Anna held her ground. "It's my job to monitor Mr. Harrington's condition closely. If you have concerns about my performance, you're welcome to speak with Mrs. Harrington or the medical consultants." Lucas smirked, though his eyes remained cold. "Oh, I will." "Believe me," he lingered for another moment, as if daring Anna to slip up, before finally leaving the room. Anna let out a shaky breath once he was gone. Lucas's growing hostility only confirmed her suspicions. He knew she was onto something, and he wouldn't let it go unchecked. That evening, Anna and Margaret met in the staff quarters to discuss their next steps. Margaret had been keeping a close eye on the household, noting any unusual activity among the staff or visitors. "There's been a lot of whispering among the security team," Margaret said, her voice low. "I overheard one of them mention a shipment arriving tomorrow. I don't know what it is, but it sounded important." Anna frowned. "A shipment? Do you think it has anything to do with Edward?" "It's possible," Margaret said. "I'll try to find out more, but we need to stay vigilant. Lucas is already on edge, and Veronica's been unusually quiet." Anna nodded, her resolve hardening. The signs were clear. Something was about to happen, and she needed to be ready. Whatever the shipment was, it might hold answers, or bring new dangers. Before bed, Anna returned to Edward's suite for one last check. His vitals remained stable, with the faint signs of improvement still present. She stood by his bedside for a moment, her fingers brushing lightly against his hand. "You're not alone in this," she whispered. "I'll fight for you, even if no one else will." As she left the suite and made her way to her room, Anna felt a growing sense of urgency. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the clock was ticking. She didn't know how much longer she could evade Lucas and Veronica's scrutiny, but one thing was certain: the fight was far from over. The Harrington estate was unusually still that morning, its silence heavy and oppressive. Anna moved through her routine with meticulous care, her mind racing with anticipation. Today was the day the so-called shipment was set to arrive, and though she didn't know what it entailed, she was certain it would bring her closer to the truth or thrust her further into danger. Edward's condition continued to show faint signs of improvement. His blood pressure had stabilized at a slightly higher level, and Anna thought she detected a faint twitch in his fingers during her last check. It was a glimmer of hope, but she knew it wouldn't go unnoticed for long. Lucas and Veronica were too observant, their control over Edward's care too deliberate. Margaret met Anna in the pantry just before lunch, her expression tense. "It's here," she said in a hushed voice. "The shipment arrived about an hour ago. Lucas and Veronica have been in the study ever since." Anna felt a jolt of adrenaline. "Do you know what it is?" Margaret shook her head. "No, but I overheard one of the security staff saying it came from a pharmaceutical supplier." The implications sent a chill down Anna's spine. Whatever had arrived, it was likely tied to Edward's condition and to the deliberate efforts to keep him in a coma. "I have to find out what it is," Anna said firmly. "If it's more medication, I need to document it." Margaret hesitated, worry etched on her face. "You're taking a big risk, Anna." "If they catch you—" "I know," Anna interrupted, her voice steady, "but I can't stop now. Edward's life depends on it." That afternoon, Anna waited for her chance. Lucas and Veronica remained in the study, their voices muffled but tense as they discussed the shipment. When the house grew quiet, Anna slipped down the hall toward the storage room where the shipment had been taken. The door was locked, but a quick search of the nearby office yielded a small keyring. Anna's hands trembled as she turned the key in the lock, her heart pounding in her ears. The door creaked open, revealing several large boxes stacked neatly against the wall. Anna moved quickly, her eyes scanning the labels on the boxes. One in particular caught her attention, an unmarked container sealed with heavy tape. Using a small pair of scissors she'd brought with her, she carefully sliced through the tape and lifted the lid. Inside, rows of vials glinted under the dim light. Each vial was filled with a clear liquid, the labels identifying it as a potent sedative, one even stronger than what Edward had been receiving. Anna's stomach churned as she realized the implications. Lucas and Veronica weren't just maintaining the status quo, they were escalating their efforts to ensure Edward would never wake up. She quickly took photos of the vials with her phone, her fingers fumbling as she documented the evidence. As she replaced the lid and turned to leave, the sound of approaching footsteps froze her in place. Anna's mind raced as she hid behind a row of shelves, her breath shallow and silent. The door creaked open, and Lucas's voice rang out, sharp and angry. "Who's been in here?" he demanded. Another voice, one of the security staff, replied nervously, "I don't know, sir. The door was locked when I checked earlier." "Check everything," Lucas snapped. "If anything's out of place, I want to know immediately." Anna's heart pounded as she crouched lower, praying the shadows would conceal her. The seconds stretched into agonizing minutes as the security staff moved around the room, inspecting the boxes and scanning the shelves. Finally, Lucas growled in frustration. "Double the patrols around this wing," he ordered. "And find out who's been snooping." The door slammed shut, and Anna exhaled shakily, waiting several minutes before daring to move. When the silence returned, she slipped out of the room and hurried back to her quarters, her hands still trembling from the close call. Once inside, she locked the door and pulled out her phone, scrolling through the photos she had taken. The vials, the labels, the shipment details. They were undeniable proof of the Harringtons' actions. But now came the hardest part, deciding what to do with it. Anna sat on the edge of her bed, her thoughts racing. She had taken the first step toward uncovering the truth, but she knew Lucas and Veronica wouldn't let this go. The fight was escalating, and she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. For Edward's sake and for her own, Anna resolved to see this through to the end, no matter the cost. The photographs Anna had taken sat on her phone like a ticking time bomb. Each image was a damning piece of evidence, a window into the depths of the Harringtons' deception. But now, as the quiet of the night wrapped around her small room, the enormity of her actions pressed down on her. Anna sat at her desk, the soft glow of her phone illuminating her face as she scrolled through the images again. The vials, their labels stark and clinical, seemed to mock her, daring her to act. She had the proof she needed, but the question remained, what now? The knock at her door startled her, and she quickly locked her phone before standing. "Who is it?" she called, her voice steady despite the unease creeping into her chest. "It's Margaret," came the hushed reply. Anna opened the door, and Margaret slipped inside, her expression tense. I heard Lucas barking orders earlier, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What happened? Anna hesitated, then gestured for Margaret to sit. She pulled out her phone and showed her the photos. I found the shipment, Anna said. It's more sedatives, stronger ones. They're planning to keep Edward under indefinitely. Margaret's face paled as she scrolled through the images. I knew they were controlling his care, but this is worse than I imagined. Anna leaned forward, her elbows resting on her knees. We need to get this to someone who can help. The police, a journalist, someone outside this house. But if they catch us... They won't, Margaret interrupted, though her voice wavered. We'll have to be careful. But you're right, this can't stay hidden. The two women sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their decisions hanging heavily between them. Finally, Margaret spoke again. There's someone I know, she said, a former employee of the Harringtons. She left under questionable circumstances, but she's trustworthy. If anyone can help us, it's her. Anna nodded. How do we contact her? I'll arrange it, Margaret said. But we need to act fast. Lucas and Veronica won't sit idle for long. Margaret left shortly after Dee, leaving Anna alone with her thoughts. The night stretched on, each passing minute a reminder of how precarious her position had become. She thought of Edward, lying helpless in his suite, his life suspended in a cruel limbo, and she thought of herself, of the risks she was taking, the danger she was willingly stepping into. Sleep eluded her that night. When the first light of dawn crept through her window, Anna rose and prepared for another day. Her movements were methodical, her mind focused on the steps ahead. She couldn't afford doubt or hesitation now. Edward's life depended on her resolve. As she entered the medical suite, she was greeted by the familiar rhythm of the monitors. Edward's vitals remained stable, though his slight improvements continued to hold. Anna checked the machines, her hands steady despite the storm raging inside her. "You're not alone," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. "We'll get you out of this." The door creaked open behind her, and Anna turned to see Veronica standing in the doorway. Her expression was unreadable, her gaze sharp as it swept over the room. "Good morning, Miss Velasquez," Veronica said, her tone clipped. "How is my husband today?" Anna straightened, meeting Veronica's gaze without flinching. "Stable," she replied. "No significant changes." Veronica stepped further into the room, her eyes narrowing as she studied the monitors. "I trust you're maintaining his care to the highest standard," she said, her words more command than question. "Of course," Anna said evenly. "His well-being is my priority." Veronica lingered for a moment longer before turning and leaving the room. Anna exhaled slowly, her heart pounding. The tension between them was growing, the cracks in Veronica's carefully controlled facade beginning to show. As the day wore on, Anna and Margaret exchanged brief updates in passing, their conversations curt and filled with unspoken urgency. The plan was in motion, but the stakes were higher than ever. The Harringtons' grasp on Edward was tightening, and Anna knew it was only a matter of time before they made their next move. That night, as Anna sat at her desk, she wrote in her journal. Each word was a reflection of the choices she had made, the risks she had taken, and the hope she still clung to. She closed the journal and tucked it away, her resolve firm. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, but Anna was ready. The fight wasn't over, not yet. The morning light was dim, casting long shadows across the Harrington estate. Anna woke with a strange mix of determination and apprehension. Today was critical. Margaret had contacted her former colleague the night before, and they had a plan to deliver the evidence, photos of the vials and details of Edward's treatment, to someone outside the Harringtons' reach. But every step carried its own risks. After quickly dressing, Anna made her way to the kitchen. Margaret was already there, preparing tea as if it were any other day. But the stiffness in her posture and the way her hands trembled slightly as she held the teapot betrayed her nerves. "Everything's set," Margaret murmured, when Anna joined her by the counter. "The contact will meet us at the edge of the estate tonight. I'll make an excuse to leave for errands and take the photos with me." Anna nodded, her heart pounding. "Be careful. If they catch you—" "They won't," Margaret said firmly, though her voice lacked conviction. "But you need to watch yourself too. Lucas is getting bolder. He knows something's off." The reminder of Lucas sent a chill through Anna. His presence had grown increasingly menacing, his subtle threats becoming more pointed. She had to remain vigilant. The rest of the day passed slowly. Anna tended to Edward with meticulous care, monitoring his vitals and administering his adjusted medications. His condition remained stable, and though his progress was slight, it gave her hope. If they could get him to wake up, everything would change. By mid-afternoon, Anna's nerves were stretched thin. As she walked through the house, she caught sight of Lucas in the study, his expression cold as he spoke to one of the security staff. Their eyes met briefly, and Anna felt the weight of his suspicion like a physical force. She quickly averted her gaze and continued down the hall, her heart racing. Later that evening, Margaret approached Anna in the staff quarters. She carried a small bag, its contents discreet but crucial. Inside were the printed photos, along with Anna's handwritten notes detailing the discrepancies in Edward's treatment. "I'll deliver this tonight," Margaret said, her voice steady despite the tension in her eyes. "If anything goes wrong, don't try to intervene. Stay with Edward. He needs you." Anna placed a hand on Margaret's arm. "Be safe. We're so close." Margaret nodded and left, her footsteps fading down the hall. Anna returned to Edward's suite, her stomach twisting with anxiety. She busied herself with her duties, trying to distract her racing mind. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors offered a strange comfort, a reminder of the life she was fighting to save. Hours passed, and the mansion grew quiet. Anna checked the clock repeatedly, each passing minute stretching into eternity. Finally, the sound of the suite door opening made her whirl around. It was Margaret, her face pale but triumphant. "It's done," Margaret whispered. "The contact has everything. Now we wait." Relief flooded Anna's chest, but it was short-lived. Margaret hadn't even finished speaking when the door burst open and Lucas strode in, his face a mask of fury. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice cold and sharp. Anna and Margaret froze. Lucas's gaze darted between them, suspicion burning in his eyes. "You've been acting strange," he said, stepping closer. "Both of you. Care to explain?" Anna's mind raced, but Margaret stepped forward, her expression calm. "We were discussing Edward's care," she said smoothly. "Ms. Velasquez has been concerned about his progress." Lucas's lip curled into a sneer. "Concerned? Is she? And here I thought everything was under control." Anna forced herself to meet Lucas's gaze. "Edward's care is my priority," she said evenly. "I only want what's best for him." Lucas stared at her for a long moment, his eyes narrowing. Then he turned on his heel and left the room, slamming the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, Anna let out a shaky breath. "That was close," she whispered. Margaret nodded, her hands trembling. "Too close. He knows something's going on." "We need to stay focused," Anna said. "The evidence is out now. All we can do is wait for help to arrive." The two women sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their choices settling over them. They had taken a bold step, one that could expose the truth or put them in greater danger. That night, as Anna lay in bed, her thoughts turned to Edward. His life hung in the balance, but for the first time she felt a glimmer of hope. They had taken the fight beyond the walls of the Harrington estate, and the truth was finally within reach. But as she drifted off to sleep, a nagging voice in the back of her mind reminded her that Lucas and Veronica wouldn't give up without a fight. The battle was far from over. The morning came with an uneasy stillness, the kind that made every creak of the floorboards and rustle of leaves seem amplified. Ina rose early, her mind already spinning with plans and contingencies. The evidence Margaret had delivered was now out of their hands, but the battle within the Harrington estate was far from over. Anna entered Edward's suite, her heart lifting slightly when she noticed another subtle improvement. His fingers twitched again, this time more distinctly, and his breathing seemed steadier. She carefully documented the changes, her hope renewed. Every small step brought them closer to waking him, closer to ending this nightmare. Margaret joined her later in the morning, carrying a tray of tea. The two women exchanged a glance that spoke volumes. They were allies in a house filled with enemies, and their bond had become a source of strength for both. "How's he doing?" Margaret asked, her voice soft as she glanced at Edward. "Better," Anna replied. "His vitals are stable, and he's showing small signs of responsiveness. It's slow, but it's progress." Margaret nodded, her face a mix of relief and worry. "We need to be ready. Lucas and Veronica won't let this go unnoticed for long." Anna agreed. The pressure was mounting, and she could feel the walls closing in. Every interaction with Lucas or Veronica carried the weight of their unspoken threats. She needed to act decisively before they did. That afternoon, Anna took time to review Edward's medical records again, combing through every detail for discrepancies. Her suspicions about the timing of his decline deepened as she pieced together a pattern. His condition had worsened significantly after certain adjustments were made to his treatment, all authorized remotely by Veronica. The door to the suite opened, startling Anna. Lucas strode in, his face a mask of cold suspicion. "Still spending all your time in here, I see," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. Anna straightened, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Mr. Harrington's care requires close attention." Lucas's gaze flicked to the monitors, then to Edward's still form. "And have you found anything worth your precious attention?" he asked, his voice sharp. Anna met his gaze, refusing to back down. "Mr. Harrington's condition is stable, and I'm focused on maintaining that stability." Lucas stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "You're very good at dodging questions, Miss Velasquez, but let me be clear. This isn't your concern. You're here to do your job, nothing more." "I am doing my job," Anna replied evenly. "My job is to care for my patient." The tension between them crackled like a live wire. Lucas held her gaze for a moment longer before turning on his heel and leaving the room. Anna exhaled slowly, her hands shaking as she returned to her notes. Later that evening, Anna met Margaret in the greenhouse. Henry joined them, his presence a welcome relief in the growing storm. "We need to plan for the worst," Anna said, her voice firm. "If they realize what we've done, they won't stop until they silence us." Henry nodded, his expression grim. "I've been keeping an eye on the security staff. They've increased their patrols, and Lucas has been meeting with them more often. He's definitely suspicious." Margaret added, "We need to keep up appearances, act like nothing's changed, but we also need to be ready to move quickly if things escalate." Anna nodded, her resolve hardening. "Edward's starting to show signs of recovery. If we can wake him up, it could change everything." The three of them spent the next hour strategizing, discussing escape routes and contingency plans. They agreed to keep their communication discreet and to avoid drawing attention to themselves. The stakes were higher than ever, but they were united in their determination. That night, Anna returned to Edward's suite for one last check. His hand twitched again, this time with enough force to make her gasp. She leaned closer, her pulse quickening. "Edward," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If you can hear me, keep fighting. We're almost there." As she left the suite, her heart was filled with equal parts hope and dread. The Harringtons were circling, their control slipping, and Anna knew the final confrontation was inevitable. But she was ready. For Edward, for the truth, and for the justice he deserved, she would fight until the very end. The tension in the Harrington estate was palpable, an invisible weight pressing down on everyone within its walls. Anna felt it the moment she woke. She moved through her morning routine with a deliberate calm, knowing the day would bring the confrontation she had been bracing for. Edward's condition had improved further overnight. His hand twitched not once but twice during her morning check, and his eyelids fluttered faintly, as if he were trying to wake. Anna carefully documented the changes, her heart racing with hope and dread. This progress would not go unnoticed by Veronica and Lucas. By late morning, Margaret pulled Anna aside in the kitchen. Her face was pale, her expression tight with urgency. "Lucas has called a meeting in the study," she said in a hushed tone. "I overheard him telling Veronica that everything is about to change." Anna's stomach twisted. "Do you think they know?" Margaret hesitated, then nodded. "They suspect, at the very least. You need to be ready." Anna returned to Edward's suite, her mind racing. She had been careful, but the Harringtons were too shrewd, too controlling. If they confronted her, she would need to stand her ground, but how far would they go to protect their secrets? The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, growing louder. Anna turned just as the door to the suite burst open and Lucas stormed in, followed closely by Veronica. Lucas's face was a mask of fury, his eyes sharp and dangerous. "Enough," he snapped, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "We know what you've been doing." Anna stood her ground, her heart pounding. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play coy," Veronica said, her voice icy. She stepped closer, her elegant composure belying the venom in her gaze. "We've noticed the changes in Edward's condition. His vitals, his responsiveness. This isn't your doing, is it?" "I've been following the protocols," Anna replied evenly. "If Mr. Harrington is improving, it's because he's stronger than you've given him credit for." Lucas sneered, his lips curling in disdain. "Stronger? Don't insult my intelligence. You've been tampering with his treatment, haven't you?" Anna's resolve hardened. "I've been giving him the care he deserves," she said. "The care he's been denied because of you." The words hung in the air, a challenge thrown down. Lucas stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. "You have no idea what you're meddling with," he growled. "Edward's condition is under control. The decisions we've made are for the good of the family." "For the good of the family," Anna repeated, her voice rising with defiance. "Or for your own gain. You're keeping him in that bed because it benefits you, not him." Veronica's composure cracked, her face twisting with anger. "You don't know what you're talking about," she hissed. "Edward's care is none of your concern." "It's every bit my concern," Anna shot back. "I'm his nurse, and I've seen the evidence. You've been drugging him, keeping him in a coma so you can control his fortune." Lucas lunged toward her, but Margaret appeared in the doorway, her presence stopping him in his tracks. "That's enough," Margaret said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Anna's not alone in this." Veronica's eyes narrowed. "You too," she said, her tone dripping with betrayal. "After everything we've done for you," Margaret held her ground, "after everything I've seen." Yes, the standoff crackled with unspoken threats, the air heavy with the weight of years of lies. Finally, Lucas spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "You've made a mistake, both of you. This house has no place for traitors." Before he could act, a sudden noise erupted from the hallway, voices, sharp and urgent. Moments later, the door opened again, and two uniformed officers stepped inside. "What's going on here?" one of them asked, his gaze sweeping the room. Anna felt a wave of relief. The evidence Margaret had delivered had reached its destination. Help had arrived. "These two have been tampering with Edward Harrington's treatment," Lucas said quickly, his voice dripping with false indignation. The officers exchanged glances, then turned to Anna. "Is this true?" Anna stepped forward, her voice steady. "No. I've been caring for Mr. Harrington as his nurse. These two have been keeping him in a coma for their own gain. I have evidence to prove it." The officers listened as Anna explained, presenting her notes and the photos she had taken. Lucas and Veronica protested, but their arguments grew increasingly desperate as the weight of the evidence became clear. Finally, one of the officers spoke. "We'll need to take this matter to the authorities for further investigation. For now, Mr. Harrington's care will be transferred to a neutral facility." Anna felt a wave of relief, so profound it nearly brought her to tears. As Lucas and Veronica were escorted out of the suite, their protests echoing down the hallway, she turned to Margaret. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling. Margaret nodded, her eyes glistening. "Yes, we did." As the room fell quiet, Anna turned back to Edward. His hand twitched again, stronger this time. She smiled through her tears, knowing that this was just the beginning, for him and for herself. The Harrington estate felt different now. The oppressive tension that had clung to its walls for so long had dissipated, replaced by a tentative stillness. The household staff moved with quiet purpose, their once guarded expressions now tinged with relief. For the first time in weeks, Anna felt as though she could breathe. Edward had been transferred to a specialized care facility early that morning. Anna had accompanied him, ensuring his transition was seamless. The neutral environment was a stark contrast to the grandeur of the Harrington estate. The clean, bright space felt safe, untainted by the manipulations of his family. Anna stood by Edward's bedside, her hand resting lightly on his. His vitals remained steady, his signs of responsiveness consistent. The staff at the facility assured her they would continue the treatment plan she had initiated, adjusting his medications, reducing the sedatives, and monitoring for further signs of awakening. "You're free now," she whispered, her voice soft but resolute. "Keep fighting. We're all rooting for you." After ensuring everything was in place, Anna returned to the estate to collect her belongings. The drive back was quiet, the passing scenery a blur as her thoughts lingered on the events of the past days. Margaret had promised to meet her in the staff quarters for one last conversation before they both moved on from the Harrington household. When Anna arrived, Margaret was waiting, her kind face weary but content. "You've done something incredible, Anna," she said as Anna entered. "Edward has a chance now because of you." Anna smiled faintly, her emotions a mixture of pride and exhaustion. "I couldn't have done it alone. You and Henry were with me every step of the way." Margaret reached out, placing a hand on Anna's shoulder. "You gave us the courage to act. That's something no one else could have done." The two women sat together, sipping tea and reflecting on the whirlwind of the past weeks. Margaret shared stories from her years working for the Harringtons, her voice tinged with bittersweet nostalgia. Despite the darkness that had consumed the family, there had been moments of kindness, of humanity. Edward had been at the heart of those moments, and Margaret's loyalty to him had never wavered. As they talked, Anna felt a sense of closure beginning to settle over her. The weight of the secrets, the lies, and the danger had lifted. She had come to the Harrington estate seeking a job, but she was leaving with something far more profound, a renewed sense of purpose. Before leaving the estate for the final time, Anna walked through the gardens. The autumn leaves crunched underfoot, their vibrant colors a reminder of change and renewal. She paused by the greenhouse, where she had shared so many conversations with Henry. Though he wasn't there now, his wisdom lingered in her heart. Anna reached into her pocket and pulled out the small sprig of rosemary Henry had given her weeks ago. Its fragrance was faint but still present, a symbol of the courage she had found within herself. She placed it gently on the greenhouse steps, a quiet tribute to the bond they had shared. As she stepped into the waiting car, Anna looked back at the estate one last time. The towering walls and sprawling grounds no longer intimidated her. They were just a place she had survived, overcome, and left behind. The car pulled away, and Anna turned her gaze to the road ahead. She didn't know exactly what her future held, but for the first time in years, she felt ready to embrace it. Anna's return to her apartment felt surreal. The small, familiar space, with its simple furnishings and quiet comfort, was a stark contrast to the grandeur and turmoil of the Harrington estate. She set her bag down by the door and stood in the silence, letting it wash over her. The events of the past weeks had changed her. The woman who had left this apartment weeks ago was cautious, afraid of risk, and hesitant to confront the unknown. The woman who returned was different, stronger, braver, and more resolute. After unpacking, Anna spent the evening catching up with Clara, her closest friend. They sat at Anna's kitchen table, the warmth of tea between them as Anna recounted the story of her time at the Harrington estate. Clara listened intently, her expressions shifting from shock to admiration to anger as Anna detailed the lengths Lucas and Veronica had gone to maintain their control. "I can't believe you went through all of that," Clara said, her voice thick with emotion. "And you didn't just walk away. You fought for him." Anna smiled faintly, her hands cradling her teacup. "I couldn't leave him like that. It wasn't right. Edward deserved a chance, and I had the ability to give him one." Clara reached across the table, squeezing Anna's hand. "You're incredible, Anna. I don't think I could have done what you did." "It wasn't easy," Anna admitted. "There were times I wanted to give up. But I had help. Margaret, Henry, they believed in what we were doing. That kept me going." The conversation turned lighter as the evening wore on, and Anna felt a sense of normalcy beginning to return. But even as they laughed and reminisced, a part of her remained tethered to the events of the estate. The fight wasn't over. Edward was still in recovery, and the full consequences for Lucas and Veronica were yet to unfold. In the days that followed, Anna began to settle back into her life. She resumed her shifts at the hospital, her return met with warm embraces and curious questions from her colleagues. Though she offered only a vague explanation of her absence, her renewed energy and confidence didn't go unnoticed. One evening, Anna received a call from Margaret. "I thought you'd like to know," Margaret said, her voice warm. "Edward's responding more each day. He even opened his eyes briefly yesterday." Anna felt a surge of relief and joy. "That's wonderful news, Margaret. He's fighting." "He is," Margaret agreed, "and it's because of you. I told him about you, how you refused to give up on him. When he's fully awake, I think he'll want to thank you himself." The thought filled Anna with gratitude. She hadn't done it for recognition, but the idea of seeing Edward awake and able to reclaim his life made everything she had endured worthwhile. Anna's world had changed, but so had the way she saw it. The familiar routines of her hospital work felt richer now, imbued with a sense of purpose she hadn't realized she'd been missing. She connected more deeply with her patients, her experiences at the estate, teaching her the importance of fighting for every life, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Her colleagues noticed the change. "You seem different," one of them remarked during a quiet moment in the break room. "More confident, happier." Anna smiled, her mind flashing back to the moments in the estate where she had stood her ground, fought for Edward, and discovered her own strength. "I've been through some things," she said simply, "and I've learned a lot about myself." The life Anna returned to was the same on the surface: her apartment, her work, her small circle of friends, but the way she moved through it was transformed. She carried herself with a quiet certainty, her steps purposeful and her voice steady. She had faced the shadows of the Harrington estate and come out stronger, her inner light shining brighter than ever. The following weeks brought clarity and reflection for Anna. As Edward's recovery progressed, Margaret kept her updated through frequent calls. Each small milestone, his eyes opening for longer, a faint squeeze of his hand, was a triumph, a testament to the strength Edward had maintained despite his long ordeal. Anna found herself thinking about him often, not as the enigmatic millionaire she had initially known, but as a man who had been wronged by those closest to him. She hoped that when he was fully awake, he could reclaim his life and find peace. One crisp autumn morning, Anna received a letter in the mail. The envelope was simple, but the Harrington name in the return address immediately caught her attention. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside was a handwritten note: "Miss Velasquez, thank you. Though I am only beginning to understand what has happened, I am told that you fought for me when no one else would. I owe you my life. Please know that your courage and determination have given me a second chance. With gratitude, Edward Harrington." The words moved Anna to tears. She folded the note carefully and placed it on her desk, a tangible reminder of the impact her actions had made. She felt a swell of pride, not for herself alone, but for Margaret, Henry, and everyone who had believed in doing what was right, despite the risks. That evening, Anna met with Clara for dinner at a cozy cafe. They sat by the window, watching the world bustle outside as they shared stories and laughter. Clara had been a constant source of support, her encouragement a steady anchor during Anna's most trying moments. "You know," Clara said, sipping her coffee, "I've been thinking about everything you've done. It's not just Edward you helped, it's yourself too." Anna tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" Clara leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "Before this, you were stuck, Anna. You gave everything to your work, but you were holding back, afraid to take risks, to let yourself be vulnerable. What you did for Edward wasn't just brave, it was transformative. You rediscovered who you are." Anna considered Clara's words, realizing how true they were. The experience at the Harrington estate had tested her in ways she had never imagined, but it had also shown her the depth of her resilience and compassion. "I guess I needed that push," Anna admitted, "to remind me that I'm capable of more than I thought." Clara smiled warmly. "And now you can share that with others. Your patients, your friends, anyone who needs to see that even when things seem impossible, there's always a way forward." The conversation stayed with Anna as she returned home that night. She sat at her desk, opened her journal, and began to write. She recounted the lessons she had learned, the importance of courage, the power of connection, and the strength that came from standing up for what was right. The words flowed easily, each one a reflection of the journey she had taken. Anna realized that her story wasn't just hers. It was a story of everyone who had fought alongside her, of Edward's struggle and resilience, of Margaret's quiet bravery, and of Henry's steadfast support. It was a story of humanity at its most vulnerable and its most courageous. As she closed the journal and placed it on the shelf, Anna felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Now, her focus was on the light ahead, a life filled with purpose, growth, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest acts of bravery could create ripples of change. The chill of early winter had settled over the city, bringing with it a sense of calm and quiet renewal. Anna stood by her apartment window, a steaming cup of coffee in her hands, watching the soft morning light spill over the rooftops. The streets below were just beginning to stir. the hum of life reminding her of how far she had come since her time at the Harrington estate. A notification buzzed on her phone, drawing her attention. It was a message from Margaret, accompanied by a photo of Edward sitting up in bed, his hand clasped firmly around hers. His face was thinner than she remembered, but his eyes, clear and bright, held a strength that had been absent for so long. "He's awake," the message read, "and he remembers everything." Tears sprang to Anna's eyes. Edward's recovery felt like the final piece of a puzzle falling into place. Against all odds, they had brought him back, freeing him from the chains of manipulation and deceit. She quickly typed a response, her fingers trembling with emotion. "I'm so happy. Please tell him he's in my prayers." The rest of the day passed in a quiet rhythm. At the hospital, Anna worked with a renewed sense of purpose, her interactions with patients imbued with the lessons she had learned. She treated each moment, no matter how small, as an opportunity to make a difference. Her colleagues noticed the change, remarking on her calm confidence and the kindness that seemed to radiate from her. During her lunch break, Anna received another message, this time from Edward himself. The words were short but heartfelt. "Thank you for saving me. You gave me my life back. I hope to thank you in person someday." The message left her smiling for the rest of her shift. That evening, Anna returned home to find a package waiting at her door. Inside was a small, intricately carved wooden box. She opened it to find a delicate gold bracelet, its charm engraved with the word courage. A note accompanied it. "Anna, this is a small token of my gratitude. Your courage gave me a second chance, and I will carry that with me always. With heartfelt thanks, Edward." Anna fastened the bracelet around her wrist, feeling its weight, a reminder of the journey she had taken and the lives she had touched. She wore it not as a symbol of her past struggles, but as a promise to herself to always act with courage, even in the face of uncertainty. In the weeks that followed, Anna stayed in touch with Margaret and Edward, their messages a steady thread of connection. Edward's recovery was slow but steady, and he began the process of reclaiming his life and his legacy. Veronica and Lucas faced legal consequences for their actions, their power and control stripped away. Anna's own life took on a quiet but profound transformation. She embraced her work with a new perspective, her relationships deepening as she shared more of herself with those around her. The solitude that had once defined her life was replaced by a sense of community and belonging. One snowy morning, Anna found herself back at the greenhouse where she had spent so many reflective moments with Henry. She placed a fresh sprig of rosemary on the steps, a gesture of gratitude for the man who had stood by her side in the darkest moments. As she walked away, the crisp air filled her lungs, and she felt a sense of peace settle over her. The road ahead was still unwritten, but Anna no longer feared the unknown. She carried with her the strength of her experiences, the love of those who had supported her, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest acts of courage could light the way forward. For Anna, this was not the end. It was the beginning of a life lived fully, bravely, and without regret. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.